Gus, turn your video off. Hi, everyone. I see that the number of people joining is slowing down, so I'm going to get us started. Aloha, my name is Stephen Schatz, and I'm the Executive Director of Hawaii P20 Partnerships for Education. It is my great pleasure to welcome you to this webinar that we are co-hosting with the Chamber of Commerce Hawaii. We understand that these are difficult times, and many students and families are rethinking their college decisions and whether to go at all. We want to remind people that there are many opportunities right here at home. The 10-campus University of Hawaii system can provide an affordable, flexible, and accessible education. Plus, the campuses have extended their application deadline to August 1st. There's something for everyone in the UH system. We have 7 community colleges and 3 four-year universities: University of Hawaii at Hilo, West Oahu, and Manoa. We also welcome adults who may have been impacted by the COVID-19 crisis, who may be looking for improved economic opportunity through a career change. And we know that data continues to show the value of a college education, whether it be a degree, a 4-year degree, a 2-year degree, or a certificate. There's value in achieving those academic goals on your economic situation for the rest of your life. People who have degrees are less likely to become unemployed in a recession. They return to the workforce faster after a recession, live longer, live healthier, are less likely to be incarcerated, and more likely to be involved in civic engagement. With me today, I have Frank Green, Financial Aid Outreach Specialist for UH West Oahu, and Gus Cobb-Adams, College Application and Transition Specialist with Hawaii P20. They will lead today's discussion on how college can be affordable, even during these unprecedented times. These two gentlemen really are experts in the field. We're lucky to have them on the team, and we're lucky to have them hosting this webinar, providing their insights and answering questions that will help those of you who are listening to get ahead. So for today's webinar, we're aiming to do about a 40-minute presentation and then allow another 20 minutes for questions. Feel free to submit your questions and we'll try to answer them as best as we can at the end of the session. We will also be recording this session and we'll send out a link to you with all the slides in the next few days. So with that, I will pass it over to Frank Green, who will go over some housekeeping logistics and get us started on today's webinar. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Steve, and good afternoon, everybody. Thank you very much for joining us today. My name is Frank Green. I am with the UH West Oahu Financial Aid Office, and with me today is Gus Cobb-Adams, who's the College Application and Transition Specialist with Hawaii P20. I want to thank Hawaii P20 and the Chamber of Commerce for putting today's webinar together. We really appreciate all the logistics that they took care of in the background of all of this. Just a few quick housekeeping notes. Your devices have automatically been muted and the chat function has been disabled. Questions, and we're sure there will be many, can be posted to the Q&A section, and we'll get to those as we get to the end of today's session. Please try and hold most of your questions until we get closer to the end of the session. One of the things we did when we put this session together is we looked at a lot of the questions that students and families and parents were asking and kind of built the answers to those in. So we hope to be able to answer a lot of your questions through the presentation. And if not, we have time at the end of our session to cover your questions. But again, please put them in the Q&A section. Please do not post any sensitive information, any personal identification type information, including things like social security numbers, tax information, date of birth. These are things that are not proper in this type of a forum. And then I think finally for housekeeping notes, should you need them, the restrooms are down the hall, second door on the right. Our agenda for today, we want to start off by talking about applying for financial aid. We'll talk about the FSA ID, the free application for federal student aid, which is known as the FAFSA. We'll talk about what happens if you've already applied and you're looking at possibly switching, or what happens next in the process. We want to spend some time dealing with special circumstances and professional judgment, and go through the process of how a family or a student can go and appeal their financial aid award. We'll give you the latest information on the CARES emergency student grants. We don't have all the answers here, but at least we will have the updated information. Then we want to talk about applying for UH admissions, and then again, we will have time for questions. As you all know, these are challenging times and there's a lot of uncertainty out there. Information is constantly changing and we are receiving literally daily updates. While we hope to be able to answer your questions today, the truth is there is still much out there that we just don't know right now. So in advance, my apologies for the times that we will need to respond with, we don't know. We want to make sure that you're getting correct information and don't want to lead you astray with something we just don't know at this point. We also understand that your individual situations are unique, and a forum such as this may not be the best way to answer your questions. If you wish to contact us after today's session one-on-one, both Gus and I are available at the email FAFSA, F-A-F-S-A, @hawaii.edu. We work this daily and we can go through any questions you may have that are of a more personal nature and that venue.
So aloha everyone. So applying for financial aid, it's not too late to file for your free application for federal student aid. The FAFSA, or free application for federal student aid, is the first step to the financial aid process. You're gonna use the FAFSA because it's so important to accessing all the federal aid that's available. It's important to accessing all the state aid that's available. And then many nonprofit corporate organizations use the FAFSA to assess need. It's also used by students and parents to access student loans. So that's why the FAFSA is so important to this financial aid process and is the first step in this financial aid process. So if you've not yet applied for the FAFSA, it's super easy to do. In fact, the FAFSA has never been easier to complete than it is right now. The first thing you're gonna do is you're gonna generate what's called an FSA ID. The student will create an FSA ID and a parent will create the student FSA ID. Once you guys have both created an FSA ID, we recommend sitting down together and you guys are gonna go to FSA to the FAFSA.gov and you're gonna log in and you will choose the FAFSA year 2020-2021 to submit a FAFSA. We highly recommend that you guys use the IRS data retrieval tool or the DRT. This is a super duper function of the FAFSA that will allow you to link your IRS information and your federally submitted tax return with your FAFSA application. So we recommend using it because it'll automatically transfer your tax information from the IRS directly into the FAFSA and make things so seamless in the actual completion of the FAFSA. So one helpful hint in doing this is you need to make sure that you have a copy of your 2018 1040 tax return right in front of you. And the reason we like it right in front of you is because you need to see exactly how your tax return was submitted to the IRS, because the address that's on there has to be submitted exactly how it's written on your tax return. So you've already applied. Now what? You're going to be looking out for award notification. So if you've submitted your FAFSA and you've submitted your application to the institution of your choice, then you should be expecting an award notification in your email. And this will include the type of award, type of aid that's given to you. It could be a grant, it could be a scholarship, it could be a work study program, it could be a loan that you've accessed, but the type of aid that's given, and then the amount of money that's there. we recommend that you guys review and compare your award notifications to make sure that the information is correct. And many times students need to actually press that button to accept and decline the award. And the crazy thing is that students are the ones that need to be the ones to log in, to check their email, to accept or decline the awards. Mom and dads can't do that on behalf of the student. Also, you need to look out for additional forms and institutional procedures to follow, and that will all be sent to you via the student's email. So, in this COVID process, this new world that we find ourselves in, you might be looking at applying to a new school, maybe a school that you haven't even been considering up until now. Applying this, your FAFSA application that you've submitted is the easiest thing to do to link it to a new school. And what you're gonna be doing is you're gonna update the FAFSA. All you're gonna do is log in back into your FAFSA as a returning user. You're gonna go to www.fafsa.gov and you're gonna select make a correction option. You're gonna navigate through the FAFSA process all the way to the add a school section in the FAFSA. And then you're gonna look up the school, the new school that you're gonna be sending the FAFSA to. You're gonna press save and submit. And within 24 hours, this new school that you're applying to will have your FAFSA application and financial aid information.
I'm going to talk a little bit about professional judgment. And first I want to explain to you what this procedure is. Professional judgment is the authority that's given to the financial aid offices that allows us to make adjustments on a case-by-case basis for students and families who have extenuating or special circumstances that are not addressed on the FAFSA. And this is common. It is very common. You know, the FAFSA is completed by over 20 million students. It's trying to be fair and equitable to all 20 million. It just can't work. There's too many different situations out there. These type of situations that we're looking at, these would include things like a death in the family, a recent divorce or separation, loss of employment, or any other type of reduction in family income, unexpected expenses. You know, the hurricane comes and blows the roof off your house. You weren't expecting to have to drop $20,000 to put a new roof on. These are things that are not taken into consideration on the FAFSA that we in the financial aid offices can take into consideration. As I mentioned, loss or reduction of income is certainly considered a special circumstance. With the trying times that we're in right now, we expect to see a lot, or expect to see an increase in these type of cases. You will have filed your FAFSA for the 2021 school year using your 2018 income tax information. The assumption behind that is that your income in 2018 has remained relatively the same. So you made about the same amount of money in 2019, and you will probably make the same amount of money in 2020. And we know that is not going to be the case. So that is a situation where you will want to talk to the school and request an adjustment, basically, is what we're doing. Now, requests for professional judgment adjustments, these are submitted directly to the school where your student will be attending. The decision is up to the school. Each school will have a slightly different process for doing this, slightly different forms, slightly different procedures, but it is up to the school. The decision is final. It cannot be appealed. In order to do this, you will need to contact the financial aid office directly or check the website of the school, the financial aid office section of the website. Many schools now, especially nowadays, have already preloaded the special appeals or special circumstances forms on their website and will give you the procedures, exactly what you need to do and when you need to do that. Again, schools' procedures are different, so you need to make sure that you're checking with the school. What one school does, another may do it totally different. To assist students with starting this process, and remember, it is the student that is doing this. It is the student who has been accepted for admission. It is the student who filed the FAFSA albeit with parental information, but it is the student's responsibility to do this. So the student is the one that needs to initiate the request to the financial aid office stating special circumstances. To help students do this, an organization called Swift Student provides a free digital tool that helps students actually compose an appeal letter. I went on this just the other day and actually went through it and composed one. It's really good. I can't tell you, coming from a financial aid office, how many times we get handwritten notes that can barely be read, that we don't understand, that don't have the necessary information. This online form, or this online letter writing, if you will actually clarify exactly what you're asking for in a format that financial aid offices need. Now, this does not replace an institution's procedures or forms. You're still going to have to go through their procedures and their forms, but it's just a fabulous way to get it started. It makes it clear and concise right from the beginning. Now, having said that, I would recommend that you not do this tonight. This is not something that you need to jump on immediately. Hold off a little bit. We literally are getting new guidance on a daily basis from Congress and the Department of Education. Right now, most of that guidance, most of the new regulations and things that are coming out are dealing with our current students. But as we move forward, we expect here additional guidance and information regarding our fall, or students entering school in the fall. Our hope is that the process may become a little bit easier. So I would strongly recommend that you hold off just a little bit, not a lot. I mean, do this in May, but give it a couple weeks. We are getting information on a daily basis, and it may save you a little bit of effort. We want to talk about the CARES emergency grants. This is the Coronavirus Aid, Relief, and Economic Security Act that was passed by Congress. The first part of this, as far as higher education is concerned, is that the schools are going to be receiving a pool of money to assist students with expenses. And I'm going to quote to you here from the guidance we received from the Secretary of Education: to assist students with expenses related to the disruption of campus operations due to the coronavirus, such as food, housing, course materials, technology, healthcare, and childcare expenses. Now, this is a broad field of what we're able to use these funds for. I will tell you, this is one of our biggest "we don't know yet" answers. When this is going to happen, which students will be receiving the money, when the students will be receiving the money, how the students will be receiving the money. We don't have those answers yet. This is literally happening as we speak today, kind of thing. What we do know is that the UH system collectively will be receiving about $12 million for emergency grants directly to students. And our guidance from the department so far has been, this money goes to students. We're just trying to figure out and still waiting for additional guidance on how exactly we're going to do that. Most institutions in the state anyway have already submitted their applications, and we are literally on a day-to-day basis waiting for the money to show up. So that we expect to help a lot of students. We just don't know how that's going to happen yet.
All right. Well, the coolest thing about college is that it's still here. It's still accessible, and there's still time to apply. College is accessible, college is attainable, and college is affordable. In fact, in this era of social distancing and maintaining a close space to your home life, maybe staying in college in your community might be the safest option for you. And the coolest thing is that the University of Hawaii Community College system is still the most affordable option for you to pay for college. And it's right here in a community right near you. There's 10 campuses statewide, very near to your house, close to your community. And also, in addition to being the most affordable option for paying for college, the University of Hawaii Community College system has a Hawaii Promise Scholarship, which on average last year awarded $1,200 per student additionally to whatever financial aid opportunities students were accessing to begin with. So the UH system schools are still accepting applications. The deadline for admissions will be extended until August 1st, 2020. So students and parents should be completing this application together. And we recommend this for basically everything that a student and parents are doing for this college process. You know, college is very much a family affair, and sitting together and completing this application will just make sure that this process is done correctly. It makes sure that if you are a state of Hawaii resident, that the proper residency declaration is achieved and you're getting the most affordable option for paying for college. I wanted to stress the importance of the Social Security number towards the financial aid process in college. So the Social Security number is not required to submit a college application in the University of Hawaii system, but it is the mechanism that links your financial aid to your admissions application and entrance into that institution of choice, which means the Social Security number is an important factor towards the financial aid process and should be entered into the UH application to make sure that you're getting the financial aid that you've applied for and that it's linked towards your college enrollment at the institution that you've applied. So the Social Security number is the mechanism that links a student's financial aid directly to their college application and acceptance. So after completing your college application, you'll be notified via email of your submission of your application. To complete your college application process, you need to submit mandated health clearances to the admissions office by August 1st. Now, the mechanism to doing this is still up in the air, but they're still going to be requiring these health clearances be submitted. So in the past, it's always been that you submit your TB or tuberculosis and your MMR, your measles, mumps, and rubella. And in fall 2020, the Department of Health has added 2 more vaccinations that will be required. It's the varicella vaccination or chickenpox, and then also the Tdap, the tetanus, diphtheria, excellular pertussis vaccination that needs to be submitted to your admissions office to gain entrance onto a University of Hawaii campus. The school after that will contact you regarding the registration process and the onboarding process to get all the requirements that you need to do to actually enroll into classes. But the cool thing is that it's all online. There's one easy place to access all of the applications in the University of Hawaii system, and that's apply.hawaii.edu. The University of Hawaii system has gone completely online for the end of the spring semester, and then also will be going online for the summer classes that will be offered this summer. So it's going to be a whole new world of online virtual class experiences. And the process to apply has already gone that way. So there's one easy online application to submit your college application. You know, saving money, staying home, and being safe, continuing your college education right here in Hawaii might just be the best option for you. Any questions out there?
Well, we'd like to open it up to your questions at this point.
So hi, I'm Leslie Yogi, and I'm the communications specialist at Hawaii P20, and I'll be moderating the Q&A session today. So if you have any questions, you can go ahead and put it in the Q&A section if you haven't already, and we'll try to get to as many as we can based on the amount of time we have left. Just as a reminder, we'll make the webinar available afterwards that you can share with others. We'll send an email link as well as a video and a PDF of the slide presentation. So in getting to our questions, we have one question for Frank. And the question is, understanding that the current situation is still extremely fluid, what changes can families of the students of the class of 2021, rising seniors, anticipate? In addition to general changes, dates for FAFSA, priority deadlines, etc., are you anticipating a significant decrease in the amount of financial aid funding available for students for the class of 2021?
Quite the contrary. I expect that financial aid awards are going to go up. I don't know what form these will take. I don't know if it will be additional Pell Grants or it will be additional funding. One of the models that we're looking at with the CARES money that's coming in, and again, this is different in every single school, but one of the models that we're seeing is that it would be broken into 2, maybe 3, maybe 4 different pools or groups of students with, and I'm making this up as I go, but half of the money going to our existing students right now, a quarter of the money being used to assist our incoming summer students, but then a quarter of that money would remain and be used for students coming in the fall. So, I mean, there's this type of funding out there that we think will be available to students going in. There's going to be an extremely active push to get students back in school. And I think one of the best ways this is going to be accomplished is by providing additional funding. I'm sorry, I don't know what it is. I don't know how it is. I don't know when it is. You know, so much we don't know, but I think it's coming.
You know, just Frank, just echoing that, you know, anytime there's a recession of some kind of economic downturn, there's always an increase in college enrollment. And one of the ways that the private sector jumps in to support all this influx of new students going to college is by upping the amount of financial aid that's available. So I agree. I think there's going to be an increased amount of opportunities to help you pay for college.
Great. The next question, we have a couple questions regarding scholarships. So folks are wondering, are there any scholarships available for incoming freshmen?
Frank,
I know Gus mentioned, yeah, I know Gus mentioned a little about Hawaii Promise, but are there other scholarships they could consider?
So there's lots of scholarship opportunities out there. We're kind of a little bit at the end of the scholarship period for the fall 2020 period, but there's still scholarships available in your community, and there's still opportunities out there. I do my presentations in the high schools, and every time I mention this, I said there's a scholarship for being left-handed. There's a scholarship if you drink Coca-Cola. There are literally scholarships out there for if you surf, if you play ukulele, if you're Native Hawaiian, if you're Filipino and going into healthcare. You know, there's literally scholarships for everything. Scholarships out there, and it just takes a little bit of a quick Google search to access some of these different scholarship opportunities that might still be out there. I also use FastWeb, which is an online search site. Scholarships.org is a great search site. And then of course, College Board is still a great place to access some of the national scholarships that are out there. So there's lots of places to access different types of scholarships and funding out there to help pay for college.
I would caution everybody to be extremely careful in the scholarship search. Gus is absolutely right. There's a lot out there, but there are a lot of scams out there. And there's probably more scams than there are legitimate scholarships, I'm afraid. It's a really rampant thing that goes on, especially on the internet. How do you know if it's a scam? Your first indication is if there's a fee involved. And I don't care whether that's an application fee, a submission fee, a notification fee, an award fee, whatever the fee is called. Financial aid, including the search for scholarships, is meant to be a free process. I mean, the bottom line is you're looking for funding to help pay for your students' education. You don't have money to be paying fees to people. So if something is charging a fee, click next, move on, get out of there, but don't get caught into that trap.
Okay, the next question is there any way to compare parent Parent Plus loans to a private student loan? And what's the difference?
Well, there certainly is. I mean, it gets a little tricky when we start dealing with private loans, but information on Parent Plus loans, including application procedures, as well as interest rates and repayment plans and deferment options, are available at studentaid.gov, which is kind of the gateway to all federal aid. And the Plus loan is part of the federal aid process. So that's an easy place to get information in. It is a fixed interest rate, which means you will see it right there. It does change July of every single year, but then it is fixed for the balance of the year. Private loans are, as they imply, they're private commercial loans. These go generally through banks. They have varying interest rates. They are a credit-based type of loan, which means the interest rate is generally determined by the credit rating. While students will apply for private loans, they generally, because they probably don't have a credit score, they will probably require a cosigner, which means the interest rate for the student loan may be dependent on the cosigner's credit score. So be careful with these because they're very slick in their advertising, and they will show you interest rates of 1.5, 2.2%. But these are going to go to only the people with a perfect credit score. I don't think I've met anybody who's actually gotten that interest rate. And then from there, depending again on the credit score, it can go up as high as 14%, which is ridiculous. It is just extremely high. And you generally don't know this until after you submitted the application and applied and been approved. Then they will come back and tell you what the interest rate is that they're offering at that point. You still are not stuck taking the loans, but be careful, go slow, and watch out for the fine print.
Hey Frank, could you explain a little bit about what the Plus loans are exactly for students and parents out there who don't know what the Plus loans are?
Certainly can. Most financial aid is geared towards the students. So when we talk about student loans, these are loans actually the student is taking out. But a lot of times that's not enough. Parents, families need access to additional funds. And to that end, the Plus loan, which stands for Parental Loan for Undergraduate Students, is where the word comes from, is a loan that the federal government makes available to parents of undergraduate students. It is a credit-based, or there is a credit check involved with a Plus loan. But I got to tell you, it's not a very severe credit check. Our standard line is if you have a job and you're alive, you will qualify for the Plus loan. They don't dig very deeply on that. The interest rates are not great. Student loans that the student would take out generally have a 4-point-something interest rate. This will be changing as well. Plus loans tend to push the 8%. I think we're at 7.9% right now on a Plus loan. There are fixed limits to the amount that a student can borrow. An incoming freshman student is maxed at $5,500. There is no limit to a Plus loan. Parents can borrow the balance needed to pay for the education with a Plus loan. I always tell parents, don't rush into it. It's a loan. The money's not going to disappear. It'll be there. I mean, you can wait all the way up to when you start school. And then if you want to do it, you can do it then. But compare your options. And I don't pretend to be a financial advisor, and I wouldn't by any means give advice in that area. But you do want to take a look at other options that may be available in your household or in your personal life.
Okay, the next question is, do we need to turn in a FAFSA to every school that we apply to?
Once you submit, when you submit the FAFSA, there's a section where you include school codes. You can add up to 10 school codes on the initial filing. Once you add the school code to your FAFSA, those schools will automatically receive a copy of the result of that, which is called the Student Aid Report, or the SAR. So it's kind of an automatic process.
Great. We're getting a lot of questions about professional judgment. So which you already covered in your presentation, but one of the questions is, When should we contact our campus financial aid offices to inquire about the procedures for the professional judgment adjustment? If you can maybe just reiterate that.
I will. I think it's a good time to probably start the process now. And by start the process, kind of two things. One, go onto the website of the institution, go to the financial aid section. There should be a section there that talks about requesting or appealing your financial aid award or requesting professional judgment for special circumstances, and become familiar with their procedures. I know on my campus, we actually have the form. It's a downloadable PDF form that's on our website, which you can download and start filling it out. I would recommend going to the SWIFT student and creating an appeal letter now. I just wouldn't file it today. I think beginning of May, first week of May, let's say, would probably be a good time to start sending things in to the schools. It is a process and it will take a few weeks to get through it. And of course, with the working at home and all the restrictions we're going through now, everything is moving a little bit slower. So I wouldn't wait till August to do this, but I think May is probably a good time to get these in.
Okay, the next question is for Gus. What is the application fee for UH?
That's a great question. Well, different institutions have different application fees. I believe the application fee for the University of Hawaii Manoa is $95. As always, the community college system does not have an application fee. Frank, at West Oahu, it's $50, right? 55?
Man, yes, you're exactly right. It's $50 at
$50.
West Oahu, yeah.
And I believe it's the same at UH Hilo, around $50. That's a great question.
Okay, the next question is, since the FAFSA will be using tax returns from 2018 or 2019, how will aid be adjusted to accommodate COVID-related changes in income?
What happens is aid does not get adjusted, eligibility gets adjusted. So if, for example, if there's been a reduction in income, you still, for 2021, will need to use your 2018 tax information. That's the law. It has to be filed that way. But basically through the appeal process, you come back to us in the financial aid office and say, look, my income for 2018 is reported as $100,000 on my 1040, my IRS 1040, but we've lost our job, our hours have been cut, and we estimate, or we think that our income for this year is going to be $50,000. You will have to document that by showing, current pay stubs or notification of furlough or whatever you have to show why you're basing that, projected your income at that level. Once we receive that, we being the financial aid office at the institution your student's attending, will go back into FAFSA, change the income, and recalculate the eligibility. That generally leads to an increase in a student's award.
Okay, the next question is about the CARES funds. They'd like to understand who will be eligible for this fund. I read that to be eligible for this fund, you must be Pell eligible or eligible to apply for FAFSA. Are you aware of the eligibility for this fund?
Yes, I am. And you do not have to be Pell eligible, no. Not from the legislation that was passed. The legislation specifically states that they must be eligible to file a FAFSA. It does not mean that they had to file a FAFSA. It just means they have to be eligible. What does that mean? Well, that means basically you need to be a US citizen or a legal non-resident. You have to, if you are male, you have to have registered with Selective Service. You have to have completed high school and or its equivalent. What else am I missing, Gus? You have to have a valid social security number. If you meet that criteria, then you are eligible to file a FAFSA, whether you filed it or not. You then are eligible to be in this pool of CARES money. That's what we know so far.
Great. The next question is once we apply for FAFSA, do we get information back via mail or email?
So you should be receiving notification via the student email. And the student email will prompt you, I know in the University of Hawaii system, it'll prompt you to access your MyUH portal, which will take you to your financial aid portal. And that's where information can be accessed.
Parents, I will warn you that when a student files a FAFSA, the notification that the FAFSA has been successfully processed will go to the student. You, as a parent, will not get that email. If you've included your email on the FAFSA, you will receive notification that says something to the effect of, hello, parent, we want to let you know that your student's FAFSA or your student has received the results of their FAFSA. You may want to talk to them, but it's the student that's going to be receiving notification that it's been submitted or been processed.
Okay, so we have another question related to FAFSA. If the child is receiving survivor benefits as a result of a deceased parent, would this impact the child's FAFSA's EFC?
I'm going to assume that we're talking about Social Security survivor benefits. If they are in fact Social Security benefits, they are not reported on the FAFSA, so they will have no effect whatsoever.
Okay. The next question is, if a student's financial aid package doesn't include a PLUS loan, can they ask for one?
Absolutely. Yes, again, contact the financial aid office. And the first question I would ask is, this is not enough, we need additional help. Have you got anything else? What else you got? And would we then be eligible to apply for a PLUS loan? But yes, you certainly can.
Another question is, how does the current situation impact students who qualify for work study?
Well, it's kind of two answers to that. Students who are currently on work study are basically allowed to continue to receive their normal pay, even if they're not working. I know on my institution, we've been able to maintain hours for our work study students and therefore continue to pay them. For students starting in the fall, I don't know. I don't know what that's going to look like yet.
Hey Leslie, I have to change my answer on the application fees for the University of Hawaii at Manoa. I knew when I said it, it didn't sound right to me, and the reason is I was referring to the graduate application fee. The undergraduate fee for UH Manoa is $70, with UH Hilo and West Oahu being at $50, I believe.
Great, thanks for providing that information. We have another question regarding the CARES funds. Will it be an application process, or is it just through an appeal for more financial aid for students to receive the funding?
I'm not trying to be a smart aleck, but yes, and I don't know. Again, it will be different at every single institution. One of the models that I am hearing is being discussed throughout the higher ed field is that all current Pell recipients will automatically receive some funding without an application. Then we will have a pool of money that we open up to students who can apply for it, having been affected by the coronavirus. And then we're looking again at possibly using some of it for the fall. So, I mean, it could be a little bit of both depending on the student situation.
So Frank, I got a follow-up question to that question. So this CARES money, this CARES money that's coming through the institution, this will be awarded on a first come, first served basis? Much
No.
like, no?
No, it will not. We're charged with coming up with a procedure to disperse the funds and maintaining, doing it fair and equitable to all students. Yeah, so no, it is not going to, if the student is in the pool to which we have determined that we want to disperse this money Anybody in that pool will receive funds. What will happen is the amount will be adjusted. I mean, if I've got 100 students, I can disperse $6,000 to each student. If I've got 500 students, I'm sure that amount is going to be reduced. And again, I stress, different with each institution. Every school gets to make up their own game.
Okay, the next question is, if we do not have a 1080 tax form, can we still get financial aid through FAFSA?
Oh boy, the standard financial aid answer is it depends. Why don't you have an IRS 1040 tax form? If you're not required to file an IRS 1040, then absolutely, yes. There's a box you basically check off that says, I did not file because I'm not required to file. To be honest, if you're not filing because you're hiding from the IRS and you owe them a ton of money, no, you're not going to get financial aid at that point. It comes down to, are you required to file the tax form? If you are required, you must file it in order to receive financial aid. If you are not required, we're not going to make you file it if it's not necessary.
Okay, we have another question. Is there a limit on the amount of scholarships you can apply for?
No. You can apply for scholarships forever and ever and ever. There is kind of a limit on how much you can receive, right. And it's not through the scholarship organizations. It's part of what we call the cost of attendance of going to school. Theoretically, you can't receive more money than what your education is going to cost. But realize when I talk about the cost of going to school, yes, we're including the tuition, we're including books, we're including fees. But we're also including living expenses, transportation, room and board. I mean, all of this comes into that cost of attendance number. And that really is supposed to be the ceiling for financial aid. You're not supposed to be profiting by going to school. And if you do receive more than that, it becomes a taxable issue as well. Money becomes taxable.
Okay, this question may have already been answered, but I think it's a good one to ask again just to remind folks. If we have already submitted our FAFSA for 2021 school year, should we update the FAFSA to reflect an adjusted lower income? Example, parent recently furloughed.
You cannot do that. You are not allowed to make the adjustment to that income. This needs to go through the financial aid office. You need to document the reduction in income, and then it is the financial aid office who will make that adjustment. And to be honest, if you've used like the IRS data retrieval, you physically cannot make the adjustment. You're not allowed to change the numbers.
Okay, we have a few more minutes for questions. So if you haven't had a chance to get in your question, if you want to do so now, that would be great.
Leslie, while we're waiting for the next question, I would just like to kind of review the emails and websites that we have up here. Again, if you have questions or something comes up after today's webinar, the email is FAFSA, F-A-F-S-A, at hawaii.edu. This is manned by both Gus and I, and we'll get back to you. And this is a point where we can work with you one-on-one, from completing the FAFSA to dealing with problems and getting the FAFSA to answering general questions. Please understand that we don't necessarily work for every single school, so we don't have access to specific information. So there may be a case where we need to refer you directly to the institution, but anything else, we'll work with you and get it done. And we're getting pretty good at it, I have to tell you. In addition to the emails and websites and telephone calls, we can actually now hold Zoom meetings and walk students through their FAFSA line by line. In order to get your FSA ID, which is the required electronic signature, again, every student needs one and one parent should have one. That website is fsaid.ed.gov. And to file the FAFSA, the website is fafsa.gov. Please make sure that you put in the .gov. If you don't, you may end up directed to a private site that looks an awful lot like the fafsa.gov, but at the end of it all charges a fee, and we don't want that to happen. And then for assistance in writing the financial aid appeal letter, it's formswift.com/swift-student. And again, I do recommend that if you're looking at filing an appeal to your financial aid award.
Okay, we have a couple more questions coming in. Does unemployment insurance payments affect the EFC?
Unemployment payments are considered taxable income. They are reported on your 1040 tax form and are part of the adjusted gross income. So in a sense, yes, they would affect it, but only the same way that a wage would. It's part of your adjusted gross income. So if you're going to file an appeal based on a reduction of income, unemployment benefits must be considered as part of your income for the year. Now that's assuming that you've made it through the unemployment process and you have any idea if you are eligible and what you will be receiving, which I'm understanding is not a guarantee at this point.
Okay, another question is, when we appeal to a school, do they adjust our expected family contribution, and does that new EFC then get reflected on the FAFSA? Or is it just used by that one school?
It's only that school. I want to make that clear. Each school is different. So if you're still not decided on what school and you're looking still at possibly 3 or 4 different schools, you would have to go through an appeal process with all 4 of those schools. What I do at my institution for my students, no other school can use that. So it's my decision. A school has to make their own decision. And again, what it does is change the data elements on the FAFSA that is then resubmitted, and a new EFC is calculated, which then the financial aid offices use to calculate a student's eligibility for aid.
Okay. A couple more questions on my FAFSA. Do I need to add my legal guardian noted on 2018 tax return?
Back to it depends, I'm afraid. If in fact this is a legal guardian, meaning there is a court document that has the word guardian in it, then that student is automatically independent and will not report the guardian's information at all. There's a series of questions on the FAFSA to determine dependency status, and there are things like, are you over 24 years of age? Are you married? Are you a veteran of the armed forces? Are you in active duty military? One of those questions is, are you in a legal guardianship? If you are able to answer yes and can document that, meaning you have a copy of the court order, then you are an independent student and you will report no parental information at all. Same thing applies with foster, or kids who are in foster care. They are automatically, it's one of the questions, and they are automatically considered independent. We do not take foster parents' income.
When should juniors class of 2021 start applying for FAFSA and everything else?
That's a great question. The answer is junior students who will become seniors in fall 2020, you're going to be targeting that October 1st, 2020 date to be submitting the FAFSA. And we always recommend students apply as close to October 1st as possible, because we like to think of the FAFSA as this big balloon of funding that's huge in October 1st. It's like this in October. And then millions of people start poking at this balloon, and it shrinks considerably over the years. So a lot of financial aid awards are awarded from a first come, first served basis. And applying as close to October 1st as possible gives you the greatest possibility to get as much funding as possible.
I would recommend, however, that you do not do it on October 1st. It's kind of an insane thing in this country, but 6 million people will submit their application on October 1st as soon as it opens. And if you can imagine 6 million people with their finger over the submit button, waiting for the opening, hitting submit, guess what happens to the computer when that happens? Every year, it will crash. And you're not going to lose out any money if you submit it on the 2nd or the 3rd of October as well. So no panic on the 1st of October. That's not necessary.
Okay, so we have time for one final question that we'll answer. And then for those of you who submitted questions and that we didn't get a chance to answer, we'll be in touch and we can provide an answer to you folks. And then if you have, anybody else has additional questions, you can always email us at fafsa@hawaii.edu. So the final question is, if the parents are divorced, does the student file the FAFSA separately for both parents?
Excellent question. And the answer is no, they do not. The student first needs to determine which parent's information they will file. And this is determined by figuring out with whom did the student live the most over the last year. So my only question is who did you live with? And I mean, it gets down to something as silly as it can't be 50-50 because it's 365 days in a year and it's an odd number. Where did they spend the extra night? But once you determine with whom you lived with the most over the last 12 months, then you will submit only that parent's information. You do not need to report or submit anything about the other parent.
Okay, well, that's about it, all the time we have for questions. I wanted to pass it back on to Frank for his closing thoughts.
Well, first, I want to thank all of you for joining us today. I hope we were able to answer at least some of your questions. Again, as Leslie mentioned, if you have additional questions, please contact us at FAFSA@hawaii.edu. This is what Gus and I do for a living, actually. We now sit at home and answer questions that come through this email, and we'll be happy to assist you with anything we can. And with that, please be well, take care of yourself, take care of each other, and stay safe. Aloha, have a wonderful evening. Goodbye.